Welcome, and in this lesson we're going to learn how to find files on our Linux machine. Now, there's two commands that are very useful when it comes to looking for files in Linux. First, we have locate. Locate is a very fast and cached searching mechanism. What it does is it caches all of the files inside of our environment inside of a database. Now, the cache is updated by a cron on a regular basis. However, what we can do is we can also manually update the cache. So, for example, let's go ahead and make sure we have the locate package installed. I can do a yum install mlocate. Now, it should already be installed in your Red Hat system. Sometimes it's not, so the package is actually called mlocate. The command is called locate. So for example, I can do locate httpd and nothing's returned. So if we were to now install yum install httpd, and do a locate httpd, it's also not going to return anything until we update our database. So what we do is we enter in a very simple command called update db. After that's done, we'll do a locate httpd, and look at all these returns that we have. Now this is a very fast finding mechanism because again it's cached and it's searching that database. And that's what the locate command does. So for example, let's say we wanted to locate other files called syslog on the system. So for example, if we do a man locate, this is what it says. Reads one or more databases prepared by update db and writes file names matching at least one of the patterns to standard output. So as you can see, all of our file names here returned have syslog in them. So that's what we're searching for. Now locate's a very simple tool for us to use. A much more flexible tool is the very powerful find command. The find command can be very complex. One thing it's good for is finding files that were updated after a specific number of minutes, a specific number of seconds. We could say find all files that have been modified within the last 3 days or the last 20 days. So for example, let's say we were going to look on our system. Now, when we're using find, we don't necessarily have to search for a pattern. Instead, we're searching for type of files or specific attributes on files. So we could search for files owned by a specific user. So our first option here was the location. So I could say, look in the etc directory for the file with the name of motd. So our dash name here actually specifies what we're searching on. We could be searching on the type of object. Is it a directory? Is it a file? So we could be searching for all files with a specific name or all directories with a specific name. We could just be using this command to search inside of a directory to list all directories. So for example, when we execute this command, it returns the file with the name of motd. Now if we do a find etc-user, what it's going to do is it's going to find all of the files that are owned by the root user, which is all of them. If I were to change this to a different user, for example, the default linuxacademy.com server user, it doesn't exist. Now I can search on my entire system. If I do a dot, that means search my current directory, the current directory I'm in. If I do a slash, it means search everything inside of our root directory. So it's going to search all of our partitions, all of our files, because it starts inside the root directory. So I could say find in the root directory all files that are owned by the user. And now we have all of those returned. I could also say find in the root directory, and again, it doesn't have to be the root directory, it could be any directory. Find inside of the root directory all files that have been modified within the last 3 days. So that's where the -3 comes in. So all of these files have been modified within the last 3 days. Now a lot of them are modified when the system boots. So for example, if we were to copy one of these files and issue the stat command, which provides information about the specific file, we can see the last modify time is within the last 2 days. I'm recording this video on 6/2/2015, so it was actually modified today. Now, the find command is very, very powerful. We can even search for files that have a specific permission. Let's say that we want to find all files on our system that have world read, write, and execute privileges. In other words, 777. And maybe we want to change that so they don't have that anymore. Well, we can very simply search for all of those files. So another option is to find all files that have been modified greater than 3 days ago, so not within the last 3 days. So there's a lot of files being returned on our system, and that's okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to find one of those files. I'm just going to abruptly end this, and let's just go ahead and copy a random file and do a stat, and then paste in our file name. You'll notice it was modified not within the last 3 days. Now, what I would encourage you to do is become very familiar with the man find command, because there's a lot of other ways we can search for this. Creation time. We can search based off of group, based off of user ID, -UID, -last access time, the last time a file was accessed. So it's a very, very powerful command. But with this comes the ability to search for files and then perform a command against the returned results. Well, what do I mean? For example, let's say we add a new user. I'll do a user add on the name Mary. Well, it already exists in our system. So what I want to do is I want to find the ID of Mary. From there, we're going to do a find inside of all of the files within our system. I could say the home directory, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all files owned by Mary on our system. So I'm going to specify the UID, and then I'm going to enter in Mary's user ID, which is 1002. And then we'll hit enter, and it returns all the files owned by Mary. Now, let's go ahead and just say user Mary. And again, it returned all of our files owned by Mary, which is just one file for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a second user, add Jeff. Now, the reason my Mary didn't have any files is because what I did is I deleted all of the files associated with Mary. Well, how do we do that? Well, we're going to do this against the Jeff user. If we do a find on the root system for all files owned by Jeff, it's going to return different files. For example, our bash configuration files. So maybe we want to perform a command against all of these returned files. For example, if we do a find inside of the root system based off the user Jeff, I could say return everything that's a type of F, which means type of file. And if you notice, the returned result here is no longer Jeff's home directory. So I could do a type of F for file, a type of D for directory. So next what we could do is we could say, all right, let's take all of the files owned by Jeff and let's do something with that. I want to do the -exec command. The exec command is going to allow me to execute a command against my returned results. So what command do I want to do? Well, maybe we want to display all of the contents of each file. Maybe we want to move those files to different location. So I'm going to just display all of the content. So for example, let's execute cat against each returned file. These two open braces here, open and close braces, this represents the file that's returned. So for each file returned, execute the cat command, right? So for each file returned. Then to end our command, we'll do a \semicolon. And we'll hit enter. And what happens? It's pasted out on our screen. So let's say that we want to just copy all of the files from Jeff that are owned by Jeff that are type of file into Mary's home directory. So for each file that's returned, we're going to copy each file into the Mary's home directory. We'll hit enter. So we'll go into cd/home, Mary. We'll do an ls-l, an AL for long listing since they're configuration files, and our files are now inside of Mary's directory. Now remember, Mary didn't actually have these in my example. So let's go ahead and remove all files owned by Jeff. To do that, we'll do find. We're just going to say the root directory. We could say only remove files in the /home directory tree. So we'll do that. We'll do find all files in the /home directory owned by the Jeff user. That is the type file. So instead of directories, we're doing just files. Then from here, we're going to execute the remove command against each returned file. So we'll do our brackets, and then we'll close our statement. So if we hit enter, now we go into the home Jeff user and ls-al, you'll notice that there are 0 returned results. So the find command is not just looking for an arbitrary string. The find command's not just looking for a pattern inside like the locate command is, but the find command is performing these types of searches live. So the find command, of course, is going to be a little bit slower than the locate command, but it's much more powerful. These are just a few of these options that we can do. The exec command allows us to search for maybe a ton of compromised files on our system and then remove those files. Or maybe we're looking for all files that are specific temporary files. We can look for all of them on our system and remove those just by using the find command. And find commands can get very complex and long. So this is a tool I encourage you to practice and know. However, this is enough to be prepared for our certification. It's also enough to help you understand how the find command works and how you can now go inside of the man pages and execute against the available options. So that concludes it for this lesson. Go ahead and complete this lesson.